Welcome, everyone. I am C.B. Bhattacharya, professor in the marketing department at the School of Management, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this keynote address given by Gary Hirshberg, CEO of Stonyfield Farm. Some of you may or may not know that right now we are having a two-day conference in the School of Management on a variety of issues surrounding corporate social responsibility, and we thought it would be nice to bring at least a part of that conference to the larger BU community, hence this arrangement for the keynote in this auditorium. So we're delighted that you're here with us. Let me give a brief introduction to Gary Hirshberg. I won't take up a lot of time. He's a very well-known figure. And as I mentioned, he's president and not just CEO, but CEO, as in, you get it, of Stonyfield Farm, the leading manufacturer of all-natural and organic yogurt in the United States. Gary has overseen the company's growth from infancy to its current $150 million annual sales level, and with distribution in all 50 states, often leading with an innovative marketing edge that combines the social, environmental, and financial missions of the company. He has a very distinguished career and has won numerous awards for corporate and environmental leadership, such as the 1999 Global Green USA's Green Cross Millennium Award, inspired by Mikhail S. Gorbachev for corporate environmental leadership. Gary was named Business New Hampshire Magazine's Business Leader of the Year and the U.S. Small Business Administration's New Hampshire's 1998 Small Business Person of the Year. We are delighted that he has taken time out of his busy schedule to come talk to us. And the most important thing about him that I should mention is that he's the husband of Meg Hirshberg and the father of 3 little yogurt lovers. So without further ado, here's Gary Hirshberg.
Thank you. Usually to get a crowd this size, we have to say the free yogurt will be at the beginning of the meeting, not after, but I think there's yogurt somewhere in the building. My favorite philosopher is Lily Tomlin, and she says, we're all in it alone, and I guess maybe that describes us here tonight. Let me plunge in. I should tell you a little bit about my title. I'm in New Hampshire, where we get this presidential primary. It runs virtually all the time. They're all there now. If you pull up at stop signs, they come out, and Gephardt will be washing your windshield on one side, and Lieberman's over here elbowing him. We always joke we don't vote for anyone whose hand we haven't shaken twice. I actually did hear a candidate, you will probably guess who he is when I tell you this story. I heard a candidate a couple of cycles ago who got up in front of an audience and said, it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. And actually, I agree with them completely, but it got me to thinking that it is difficult to make predictions. But we're living in such uncertain times that why predict? Why not invent? And in many ways, Stonyfield has been a testament to naivete, chutzpah, insanity. My wife calls it pathological optimism. Whatever it is that got us here. We started with 5 cows, and now, as was just mentioned, we're at the $150 million sales level. We actually just passed Kraft Foods' Breyers as the number 3 yogurt in America. We're the largest organic yogurt producer in the world, and none of this we ever dreamed about. But the way we got here is very much the theme of tonight. It's been about thinking about and relating to the future as you would relate to it in your own family and with your own children. And accordingly, let me see what I just did here. Get used to this clicker. I always like to start with this slide to be sure that we're all grounded on where we are. I don't know how many of you are sports fans, but the Orlando Magic, before they had brought in Shaquille O'Neal years ago, was just a dreadful basketball team. And Pat Williams, the general manager, had this great press conference one night. The team was, I think, had 2 wins and about 60 losses. And he came out to the press. He said, I don't know what to tell you guys. He said, we don't win at home. We don't win away. We're running out of places to play. And, I think that's true of this image here. This is where we have to play. And sadly, of course, the state of the world is bleak, particularly if you put yourselves in the positions of our children or grandchildren. Whatever the stats are that you look at, we are facing a serious decline of all biological systems at more rapid rates than ever before, but now even physical systems, as we look at water, topsoil, forest cover. Humanity has had quite a ride in the last century in particular, but really since the Industrial Revolution. And the consequences, I think, are all there for us to see. It's just that most of us tend to get busy so we don't have to see. We didn't feel that we had that luxury when we set out in business at Stonyfield, and we made very much trying to reverse these trends our business. That last stat on global ice melt rate is, of course, a function of climate change, which I think people here are probably well aware of. This is actually my background. I have no business being in business. I was trained in climatology and climatic change. My thesis at Hampshire College was the causes of alpine tree line, why they stop at certain heights and why they are rapidly descending. And of course, it's because we are, I should say ascending, and it's because, of course, we are warming the planet. Oops, I keep doing this. How am I going to get backwards? Let's go previous. This is a jumpy little thing you got here. My goodness. We'll get there. There we go. Okay. So a friend of mine, Steve Schneider, over at Stanford, who's probably one of the leading climatologists, reports has these three quotes in his website. And, without taking you through the details, suffice it to say that we are in a very serious uptick right now in terms of human influence climate change. We have ourselves, when you see that there could be a projected warming range in the range of 1 to 6 degrees centigrade in this century, understand that the only difference between us and the Pleistocene is 5 degrees centigrade, the other way. By that I mean by the last glacial epoch. So these are not trivial numbers, and unfortunately it's taken a heck of a long time to get the world scientific community, let alone the business community, to realize this is not just about the birds. This is, as you read in the final stanza down there, this is a significant economic impact, and obviously it goes to the question of life itself. And we at Stonyfield feel that business has the choice of being a part of the solution or part of the problem, and we've elected to try to be part of the solution. Just for the doubters or people who don't often know what these stats mean graphically, I grabbed these stats from one of Steve's lectures. You're looking at the same image, the same, aspect 103 years ago, and just recently. And, these mountain glaciers, when they go, that water goes somewhere. And you can rest assured this is happening in terms of Arctic and Antarctic glaciation as well. We are in a serious bout of warming, and frankly, if we stopped all production of CO2 at this moment right now, we'd still be looking about 100 years before the rate of warming would level off. So we are long since past the time when we have to be doing things. I consider it the implicit responsibility of anybody in commerce to be addressing it, and I hope to convince you of that also. The state of the humans, of course, is not much different from the state of the planet. We have, how many people right now, let me just ask, know somebody with cancer? If you just raise your hand. I used to ask, this is probably 80% of you just raised your hands. I used to ask this question 10 years ago, and it would be 50%, and 20 years ago it would be 10%. We all know something's going on out there. I'm not going to tell you that it's because not enough people are eating organic yogurt. Yes, I am. It may be our cell phone usage, it may be ambient levels of microwaves, it may be stress, clean air, clean water, who knows. But what we do know is that we have epidemic rates out there of cancer, certainly. A recent study that was published last June at the University of Washington, which was really brought this into vogue, into context, showed 90 children who had been on conventional diets. This is preschool-age kids. They haven't even gotten to the junk food stage, okay? Preschool kids who had been on conventional diets, preschool kids who had been on organic. The kids on conventional diets had 9 times the pesticide levels in their urine of the kids without. And of course, these were well in excess of so-called safe exposure levels set by the EPA. This is just, kids eating, not going out there looking for, trouble. These are littles. And of course, we're seeing this now in cancer rates across the country and so forth. In the largest survey ever to see if pesticides and other chemicals that are in the environment are in our bodies, the words that were used in this otherwise staid scientific journal were staggering amounts of chemicals present. So again, there's some problems out there. Now that I've completely bummed you out, let me just say that there are positives here, and there's reasons for my pathological optimism. When you look around at renewable energy, a place that I spent about 10 years of my life working, I used to build windmills. You can see in countries that have had made the investment, have recognized that use of fossil fuels, mining the Earth's crust for carbon and sending it up into the atmosphere is really no future at all. These countries that have put in incentives have resulted in enormous, rapid growth of renewables. And these three are just but 3 examples of countries who have made that leap. Closer to home for me as someone who uses a lot of refrigeration. At the beginning of the 90s, there was a worldwide recognition, particularly in the scientific community, but also in the industrial community, that CFCs had, in fact, led to this opening of the so-called ozone hole over the southern hemisphere. And industry got together with scientists and said, look, let's get rid of this stuff. We switched over from CFCs to other refrigerants and eutectics. And net result is we've had a dramatic reduction in CFCs in the upper atmosphere, but we've also had a closing of the ozone hole at measurable levels. We've literally in a decade reversed something that was thought to be a permanent problem. And of course, very close to home for me, I derive enormous optimism from this last stat. I'll be the first to admit that organic used to mean you have to chew extra. Many of us who were growing organic foods in the 60s and 70s, we were buying and producing with our brains, not with our taste buds. But sometime around 8-10 years ago, a bunch of us realized, hey, you know what? It's food. It needs to taste good. And once we made that leap, we've just had this incredible explosion. Because again, I could ask for hands. How many want the food with pesticides, right? I mean, who's going to raise their hand? Who wants that? How many want the ones with extra hormones? How many want the ones with extra antibiotics? So organic is clearly on a run. But don't take my word for it. Here's Prince Charles telling you what it is. Organic farming, for those who don't know, it basically means all of these words really mean no bad stuff, no toxins. You can have peace of mind. You may not have the time to grow everything. You may not have the time to study every label, but you can have, when the organic label, which we finally got through Congress and we finally got a year ago onto our products, now has a legal definition, and it means all of these things. But what it really means is you can rest assured that no toxins were used in the course of production or processing or growing of the foods that you're consuming. And in a more, perhaps from a more marketing point of view, what's happening with organic is it really is now an overlap of gourmet and health. It is right there in the fairway. The finest restaurants in America will now say organic baby greens on their menu, organic yogurt, organic goat cheese. Alice Waters, the sort of ubiquitous restaurateur from the West, calls it the delicious revolution. And we're seeing it, the organic growth that you're seeing on charts like this is happening in every segment. As they are the biggest in almost every other segment. Walmart, in fact, is one of the biggest sellers of organic foods now. Mixed blessing, I guess, but nevertheless, there it is. We have our organic yogurts are now in school cafeterias, on airlines, in universities and business and industrial cafeterias, in Costco and Walmart. Where it's no longer the corner health food store where we all sat, in our Birkenstocks, and if we had shoes on. It's really, it's a significant economic trend. It's a trend that has not, whatever country you're looking in, it has not escaped the attention of macroeconomists as well, of course, as the biggest companies on the planet. And the projections, as you can see, are just fantastic. It is literally the organic growth area in foods. And in fact, in many cases, whether it's cat food or wine, it's the only segment that is actually growing in consumer products. Now, when you look at why is it happening, again, it won't be a surprise to this audience of relatively alert and aware folks. But this is GMOs. Who wants genetically modified foods? It's a big concern driving organics. The concern about the environmental problems I showed in the first slide, big problem. We have stats that show actually numbers from anywhere from 66% to 85% of consumers say that they'd be willing to pay more for food that can be produced in ways that protect the environment. And again, without using chemicals and otherwise. The stats, in other words, if you assemble this slide in your brain, I think what you'll realize is folks who are educated, folks who are thinking, folks who are aware, given the choice, will choose organic. And it is absolutely the case that our only challenge is to be sure that it's there at your point of purchase, which is why I have started another little enterprise, which we might talk about in the Q&A. It's a organic and natural fast food restaurant chain called Au Naturals. One is not far from here in Acton. We've got 4 up, and I can tell you they're just rocking. People come in there. Actually, I was being interviewed with a reporter the other day, and a woman came, and he was asking, well, why are people coming here? And a woman walked in carrying a Burger King soda cup and got in the food line. I knew exactly why it was. She bought diet soda at the Burger King, which we won't sell because we won't use aspartame. But when the reporter went up and asked her what was going on, she said, well, actually, I get the diet soda so I can eat more here. So I thought that was an interesting, I'm making business for Burger King now. You never know how these things work out. But these are the companies who've come into organic. Again, you might recognize some of these little mom and pop names. Heinz organic ketchup has had one of the fastest starts of any ketchup that they've ever launched, including the green, purple ones that some of you fellow parents and I have seen coming in there. As we say in the organic world, it's getting weirder and weirder and weirder, but here they are. I was on the way down here, I was on the phone on the way down here with Jerry Greenfield of Ben & Jerry's fame, asking him how things are going up at Unilever. And, he's all pumped up. They have launched organic ice cream. It didn't happen under Ben & Jerry. It happened under Unilever. It's just an interesting development. So, again, if you go deep into organics, you'll find that there's a lot of things going on. But I guess the real reason I wanted to put this slide up here is I wanted you to see where price is. Way, way down on the list. It's virtually a non-issue for people who are making this preference. And as a marketer, as an opportunist, as a consumer products guy, regardless of all the my climate background, I'm here to tell you that you'd be crazy to miss out on this. If you can sell something at a higher price that is going to resonate with incredible loyalty, why wouldn't you do it? And I just make the organic case here at the outset of my presentation simply to say to you that mission marketing is not rocket scientist. It absolutely works. And why it works is, I'll let you in on the little secret. We'll just keep it among us. It's about building loyalty. It's a different play than the typical consumer products folks. If you're Coke and Pepsi, you're playing for share of 1/4 of a point. Is Coke better? Well, it depends on who advertised more that week or who Pete Sampras signed on with. But, I'm up against the biggest food companies on earth. My entire corporate budget is a rounding error next to these guys, okay? I am not going to outspend them on advertising, and Pete Sampras isn't going to return my phone call, although he's probably eating my yogurt. But did you notice Bruce Springsteen when he came here? I don't know if you saw it in the Globe. He demands that he has 5 cups of Stonyfield lemon yogurt in the dressing room for every concert. So they're eating it. They may not be endorsing it, but believe me, they're out there. But the point is, I can't compete for market share leadership based on spending. I can spend $5 million on a television ad for a year, and that's what they'll spend, that day or that week. It's just not a fair competition. But what I can do is when I get that consumer, well, I'll quote a supermarket buyer who said to me recently, when the Dannon or Yoplait are out of stock, people just switch to whoever's in stock. But when you're out of stock, they come to me. They scream. And that's really the result of tying in, building what we call the handshake with the consumer, connecting on values. And quite to the contrary of companies who believe that somehow they're supposed to check the values at the factory gate and not talk about stuff of importance, we have just flagrantly talked about things that are meaningful to us as parents, us as regular folks, and again, we think it works. Just to kind of wrap up on the organic part of this is a little status report on us. Again, we're in our 20th year. We're almost 100% organic. We think that another year we'll be there. But again, to the heart and soul of what I showed you earlier, this is just hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds of toxins that have been avoided, many, many, many family farms being saved. And frankly, if you travel in northern New England where the dairy farmer is basically an endangered species, you will find that the only farms who are painting their fences and keeping up, let alone keeping their kids excited about it, are the organic ones. Vermont this year will, with the decline of family farmers in Vermont alone, they lost, it's estimated they will lose $120 million to the state's economy in terms of lost revenues from failed farms. Organic Valley, our partner brand, and we are going to be putting about $130 million into the state in terms of new organic farmers or converted organic farmers. So we're absolutely going through a sea change here. I'll give you one quick example of why I'm so enthusiastic about organic as a model here. In Brazil now, we have actually 35,000 acres that are supplying our sugar requirements, us and a number of other companies, including Annie's Homegrown, who I know is here somewhere, and others. Why are these farmers converting to organic? Well, it's fascinating. First of all, they've had a 90% reduction in pest damage to crops. That's meaningful if you're the farmer. Phenomenal reductions. Why? Because they've diversified their mix. They've allowed 50 species of wildlife, birds, mammals, and others back onto the land, which are natural pest controls. We are using 8 times the pesticides in 2000. We were using 8 times the pesticides in 2000 that we were using in 1990 and suffering 12 times the crop losses to pesticides in America. Now, economists have a word for that. It's called bankruptcy. It's just going the other direction. When you get off of the organic dole, people say organic isn't proven. I say to you, chemicals aren't proven. We've had a 60-year love affair going with putting pesticides and herbicides down. They have not been proven to work when it comes to pest control. God knows what the health consequences are. And the net result is we've been flattening soils by not putting organic matter into them. We have not been investing in the equity of the earth. We've actually been depreciating the earth faster. And the classic example is right here. There was a serious drought in Brazil the last 2 our winters, their summers. And our organic farmers, because they put organic matter into the soil, it absorbed more moisture than was held in the conventional farms. In other words, more water was lost to evapotranspiration on the conventional farms because there was nothing to absorb the water underneath. The organic farmers wound up producing right through the droughts, whereas many of the conventional farmers never got their sugar to market. And the net result, to put this in very stark terms, is last year my organic sugar from Brazil was the same parity price with conventional sugar from the U.S. So now, even though we're not 100% organic, we use 100% organic sugar in even the non-organic products because it's the right thing to do. The topsoil underlying these fields that you're looking here is almost now equal to the native forests nearby, and they've had 10% increases in yield. So this is not pie in the sky optimism here. I'm talking about hard economics. I'm telling you that this has literally worked. So let me cut to my propositions, as I call them, and I'll broaden this discussion beyond organics. One, my view, and true confessions, I after building windmills and after studying tree line and then building windmills as a solution to climate change, the Reagan administration came in 1981. And my nonprofit, I was running a place called the new Alchemy Institute on Cape Cod that was doing a lot of solar, wind, organic agriculture, and aquaculture work. And Reagan had come in, slashed funding for renewable energy and organics and so on. And so I began, like a lot of nonprofit folks, a lot of academics, to look for new ways to find sources of income. And my mother at the time was the senior buyer for Epcot in Florida. I don't know if you know the Epcot Center. But at the time, they had the Land Pavilion, which is funded by Kraft Foods, actually. And in my institute on Cape Cod, in a room the size of this stage, we could feed 10 people 3 meals a day, 365 days a year, without using fossil fuels at all, without using pesticides, without using herbicides, without using chemical fertilizers. The sun would come in and strike the water vessels in front of the glass. The water vessels would release heat at night that would heat the building, even with 4 feet of snow outside. Before global warming, we used to have snow down there on the Cape. Since I had water, I grew fish. I grew 100 pounds of high nutrient-rich protein per year per tank. Since the fish were in there, the fish waste would fall to the bottom of the pond, and I'd have to pump them out or else they would stagnate and kill the fish. So I used this as a warm, nutrient-rich irrigant to water my plants all around the fish tanks. Since I had plants, I grew herbivorous plant-eating fish, so the weeds would come out of the garden and go back in the tanks. I had bees, butterflies, papayas, bananas, figs, all in this environment in the middle of the winter. So when I went down to Kraft Foods to see how they said food was going to be grown in the future, you can rest assured their vision was slightly different from mine. And as horrified as I was by this testament to fossil fuel, endless, bountiful resources of chemical fertilizers and so forth, big tanks of nitrogen that were flowing past the roots of these chlorotic, nutrient-starved plants. As horrified as I was by that, I realized that what was really horrifying was that for the 25,000 people who were visiting my institute every year, that's how many people were paying to go to Epcot to see this Kraft vision. I mean, the Kraft's message was basically, you buy the Velveeta, leave the food growing to us. My message was, we all got to be part of the solution. And what I recognized in that one instantaneous moment is what I'm putting up here, that most of these problems exist because businesses have just not chosen to address them. I mean, this was Epcot is a magnificent testament to the power of money and marketing, but they just were misdirecting it. And, we're straightening them out now. As I just mentioned, 20 years later, we've passed Kraft Foods and yogurt, or just about past them. So, just stick with your dreams and they will happen. I really believe business has this immense power to concentrate resources in society, has the power to create a hopeful future. And happily, what I'm here to talk to you about and what I've been sharing with you, this whole notion of mission branding is an unbelievably successful brand building strategy. I just use me as an example. Now nearly the number 3 brand, in some markets number 1. And believe me, it was not from spending and it wasn't from celebrity endorsements. And putting it in a different way, I just have this very simple algorithm, which is values, my values, equal values in the dollar and cents sense. And if you don't believe me, look at the multiples, look at deals, look at the companies like Stonyfield as they've either gone public, which we haven't, or sold or partnered with major food companies. They have gotten values that are far superior to the norms in the marketplace. Now, the best news of all, and my final proposition to you, is that consumers, believe it or not, are in charge. Why do you think these big food companies are racing into organics? It's because you're asking for it. We view the supermarket checkout counter as a voting booth. And believe me, corporate America is spending millions and millions, maybe billions, to tally those votes. And as the votes are coming in that people prefer this stuff, they race to get there. Who's now the biggest producer of organics, organic beverages now? Coca-Cola. They're not there because they had a sudden bout of moral enlightenment, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. So what is this mission branding thing I'm talking about? Well, as I said, it's really an attitude that business can't be divorced from the problems of society. It's a commitment on the part of management to integrate a concern for the community or the environment into your products and your practices. Certainly, it's a very conscious strategy to enable the company to reflect these human values and commitments and emotions, as well even as a personality. I mean, why pretend we don't feel these things? Why should I ask my employees who are concerned about stuff going on in their community to not think about that stuff at work? What would be the point of that? And it's, of course, a continuous improvement process. No one can stand up in front of you and tell you they're there. It is a constant improvement process. We're always finding new stones to be unturned in our efforts to reduce the ecological footprint of our packaging, or the production of carbon in our own manufacturing, or our transportation, or our commuting miles. But the point is, the process has been very consistent with financial objectives, as I'll show you. As I mentioned, the benefits of being a mission brander are, of course, you get enormous loyalty. People, once they know that you are standing up for a cause that they care about, they're not going to switch unless you breach that commitment. And loyalty, of course, the little hidden value of loyalty, which after all is the holy grail of consumer products, is you create a word-of-mouth engine that is very powerful. Let me mention a brand name to you, and you'll know what I mean. Howard Dean. I mean, look what's happening with this guy. He is just he's now double-digit share ahead of the next number 2 in New Hampshire. He's almost that way in Iowa. I assure you it's not from outspending. He has just created excitement and enthusiasm and a word-of-mouth machine that's really flying. The benefits are definitely reduced selling costs. Again, I can't spend advertising against my competition. What I have to do, and I'll tell you, my business formula is very simple. My products cost more. My gross margin, that is what's left after my cost of goods, is lower. My cost of goods is higher than my competition. But I make it up below the line. You know, when we had to go into Chicago about 5 years ago, Jewel, the largest supermarket chain there, told us that we had to get to a 5% market share in 3 months or we were going to be out. And we had a 1% share going in, actually 0.8% share. And then we looked at the costs, the average cost to buy those points of share, and it was beyond reach. I mean, Samuel and I used to sit in front of supermarket buyers, and they'd say, I don't know if you've heard this euphemism for extortion in my business called the slotting fee, but they would say, what are you going to pay? And Samuel and I would sort of pull out our pockets and say, do you have that, Samuel, or do you know? My partner would start talking about his kids' orthodontics bills and say, now do I pay you or do I straighten her teeth? And the buyer would say, okay, don't tell me about orthodontics, just get out of here, get your products in here. But after a while, we were at a size where we could no longer play the orthodontics card, although we used that many, many times. And so I stared at this market, which is really one television station, one newspaper town virtually, and very expensive. And we said, what are we going to do? Well, at about that time, I had been riding the T one day, and I was wanting to hug people on the T because I was coming to work. They were all kind of looking depressed and bummed out in the early morning why they were going to work. And, what I wanted to tell them all is every time you ride the public transportation, you're saving 45 pounds of particulate from going into the atmosphere by not using a car. Now, I didn't hug everybody on the train that day, but I did make a decision that when we went to Chicago in these new markets, I would come up with some strategy that memorialized that. So I went to the Chicago Transit Authority and said, listen, will you let us go onto the train platform and give people a cup of yogurt to thank them for riding the trains? And they said, excuse me, you want to thank people for riding our trains? Sure. I mean, they had never allowed even any food on their platform. So we went out. In 3 days, we sampled 85,000 people. When the commuter got off the train, they were handed a cup of yogurt and a coupon that said, we salute your commute. Thank you for using public transportation and saving the planet. We went from 0.8 market share to 3.8 in 3 days. The buyers said, what the heck is going on here? Consumers were demanding that we get it into other stores. We had the local Today Show guy, the weather guy, come down and did a full 20 minutes on us, and these crazy people who are talking about trains and climate, and they're feeding yogurt, and I don't understand it, but it's really cool, and people would come down to see him. It was just a complete win. So our selling costs have to be lower, and primarily it's our product. Employee satisfaction, a definite benefit of mission marketing. We have much higher loyalty indices, much lower turnover. My employees don't necessarily all share my views. Again, I'm from New Hampshire, the live free or die state, and you can see by the bumper stickers that not everybody agrees with me on things. But suffice it to say that there's a great deal of satisfaction about the fact that we are willing to stand for causes, whether it's school funding, equitable school funding, or reducing gun violence, or what have you. And finally, a benefit to the financial types in the audience is this tremendous history now of incidents between companies with superior records on the environment, superior records on community and social concerns, and net financial results. The top line here is the Domini Social Index, which indexes companies with superior records on the environment and social issues with the S&P 500. And it's just every year you get better returns with the companies committed to this stuff. So let me try to drive to a conclusion so we can make this more of a discussion. What are the guiding principles? First, like I've said, we're trying to build a relationship based on trust. Obviously, it requires candor, disclosure, consistency, and requires that we deliver on promises. That's why it's not enough for me to just have organic foods or to have 10% of my profits go into environmental causes. I have to leave no stones unturned in an effort to either reduce my ecological footprint or try to help restore the planet. Because if I don't, you as a consumer are going to say, well, what the heck's he doing, over here? He's, polluting over here and giving the money away over here. If you don't promise on what you can't deliver, if you don't deliver on your promises, you're DOA. As I say, it requires that you look under everything to try to improve. It is a continuous improvement process. The guiding principle is that you're trying to make people feel good about who you are as a brand. And again, don't be afraid to take positions. Now, we've had a tremendous growth rate. I'll just give you two other anecdotes to express this, and then we'll go to questions. But I had to put this quote up here. This is our leadership speaking. And I don't know about you, but when I can't even find out who it is who he employed to develop the energy plan, and we certainly know, I'm not inclined to give it much credibility. But more importantly, look at Stonyfield, this little dinky company. Look at the kind of reductions we've been able to achieve on our budget, and look at this line. When he says it's not going to contribute meaningfully to our economy, these folks who are running up, deficits that we have never, ever seen before. I have saved over $1 million myself in my one little company just through conservation improvements, just by trapping the waste heat that goes out of my water, by changing my lights over to energy-efficient fixtures. I have made myself a zero-emissions company because I've taken the savings, some of that $1 million, and invested it in carbon offsets like planting trees and converting diesel buses to natural gas and things that take carbon out of the atmosphere. I've done all of this and at the same time put a little booklet out, the Carbon Cookbook, which you can download. You can call us at 1-800-PRO-COWS, or you can download it at stonyfield.com. The cows answer, don't worry, they'll get right back to you. And you can download this Carbon Cookbook, and thousands of these cookbooks have been downloaded showing schools, universities, businesses, homes how to become carbon neutral. How do I do all of this? Again, I'll give you express a couple of quick examples. I think I've given you plenty, and we'll open this up. Many of you, I hope, know. How many of you eat Stonyfield, by the way? I should have asked this at the beginning. Great, I'm home here. The ones who had their hands up, if you notice, they're happier than the rest of you. There's a reason for that. Let me tell you why. We use more live and active cultures than any other yogurt. So the ones eating Stonyfield get multiple organisms with every bite. So the rest of you, get with the program. But if you eat our yogurt, we use our lids. Click and clack down the road here. We got together and challenged the use of SUVs. My favorite lid of all times was the one that we sent when the Gingrich Congress was coming in with what I called the Contract on America, where they were slashing funding for, you might be able to tell which party I'm with, right? Slashing funding for clean air and clean water. We came up with a lid that said, Congress, have you flipped your lid? Now, mind you, we put out 2.5 million lids a week. I call them little billboards. We got 10 million lids out there that said, Congress, have you flipped your lid? And when you flip it over, it said there was a letter that you could sign. It said, Dear Congressperson, you could fill in Barney Frank, although he was not the problem, or whomever, and it would say, I believe in an efficient government, but not at the expense of my children's future. If you vote against the planet, I won't vote for you. And 15,000 of these lids made their way to Capitol Hill. I mentioned our Profits for the Planet program. We give 10% of our profits to environmental causes. We demand that these causes help us to sell yogurt. So Living on Earth on National Public Radio gives us taglines. Others give us places to sample. Our website, you can go here if you want to figure out the most energy efficient car for your driving usage. You can go and find it here. If you want to find out the best organic items for your home, or which has the least pesticides, it's there. It's what I call permission marketing. We put it out there. We invite you to, we ask your permission to show us more, and you can go click away. The last program I want to quickly mention before concluding is something I'm very excited about. I consider very important. You may know that 72% of America's school children are now classified as either, 72% are classified as either obese or overweight. This is a crisis that of unfathomable proportions. We are working with parents and school systems on legislation to offer new alternatives around the country. You can find out about Menu for Change at stonyfield.com. We've actually started a vending program in Rhode Island with all healthy and organic products in the machine. It's actually kicking off in Cranston this weekend. We launched Superintendent's Challenges in California. We're going to be opening this to other states where we're paying financial rewards to superintendents who come up with the best idea for getting health food into the schools. This is not easy for you to see, but the upper left shows in 1992 the darker states are the ones where we had more than 50% obesity. The lower slide on the lower right, 2001, shows what happened in just this decade. I mean, there's a crisis happening out there, folks, and it is serious, and we've got to address it. There's our vending machine where you can buy organic carrots and chips and things that are natural and low in fat and high in nutrition. We, of course, have to do some advertising as a consumer products company, but this is what we choose to do. We put our messages out there. How many people want the bovine growth hormone? It's crazy. And here's our television commercial.
Red number 40. You'll find it in a lot of yogurts. But if you can't grow it, it doesn't belong in ours.
I'm Hirshberg of Stonyfield Farm. We make our yogurts the best way we know how, using organic ingredients, only what we find in nature, and never anything artificial.
Hey, Dad.
Stonyfield Farm. You can't fake this.
So we don't feel that advertising is, thanks. We don't think it's a place we ought to waste. I mean, it's a heck of a lot of money for us, and again, my cost of goods are lower anyway, so we use it as a place to proselytize. So, in conclusion, it's our view, it's our experience. I'll be the first to admit it started as a hypothesis. It is now proven that encoding our mission into our product and practices has created a valuable, highly defensible niche. There is simply no question about it. I did not win, and I am not growing at these rates on sales and on sales spending. That having a mission has resulted in loyalty, has resulted in reduced selling expenses. It's kept me in the game. Truly integrated brands, by that I mean brands that integrate a concern for an awareness of society, will definitely succeed, because the trends I've been talking about, whether they're childhood obesity, pesticides, cancer rates, or climate change, they are only going in one direction right now. And as these links become clearer, who is going to vote otherwise if they can get great taste, perhaps at a slight price premium. And finally, it's absolutely my contention, it's one of the reasons I started Au Naturals, that this is not limited to a yogurt company that produces multiple organisms. This is a business model that can apply everywhere, which is why you see Yoplait out there with lids talking about breast cancer. I mean, where did they get that idea? It's brilliant, and it's great, and more power to them. They're putting millions of dollars into the breast cancer fight, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm proud that we were part of the reason that we got there. That they got there. Now, I started by quoting my favorite philosopher, Lily Tomlin. I'll close with another quote. Lily says, "No matter how cynical I get, it's hard to keep up." And I think again, we all. The business side, but the consumer side, have a choice to be part of the solution or part of the problem. And I obviously am very pleased that you invited me here, and I thank you, because I think we all know we've got to be part of the solution. So thank you for your time and attention. So now I've given my right-wing conservative rap. I'm sure there's some leftists, some left-leaning folks, or someone else who wants to debate or ask questions, please.
You had mentioned Ben & Jerry's and Unilever, and I know that Horizon Organic was acquired by Dean Foods this past summer. Can you speak to this trend of industry consolidation and the potential benefits and or consequences that this could have on the organic industry?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. It's a great question. Well, a friend of mine says, don't take life too seriously. It's just a temporary condition. And I feel that we are against these trends. Life is short, and we have these very short moments. And I'm now speaking as the father of the 3 little yogurt eaters. I don't think we have time to mess around here. Yes, I expect to overtake Kraft and Breyers now, and I expect to overtake Yoplait and Dannon eventually. But the key word there is eventually. And Coke and Pepsi are not going to just say, oh, well, you got a better idea, we'll get out of your way. Here, you take the shelf. We do have to change these companies. We have to change them, and we have to be Trojan horses. We've got to change them from within. Now, the danger is that they may not be as loyal to the mission as I am, or as Ben or Jerry would be. The danger may be that they give it lip service. I'd rather that be our problem than that they're not in it at all. Horizon and Silk, both companies founded and run by good friends of mine, are both owned by Dean Foods, which is now the largest dairy on earth. And by the way, a powerful competitor of mine. And I'm thrilled because all across this country are dairy guys who've been driving around their trucks, who've been stocking shelves, who've been processing milk, who haven't thought anything about the family farmer. There's no voice for the family farmer in America anymore. But now, because there's an organic reg that says, this is what organic means, and by the way, this is what it doesn't mean. It means free-range animals. It means humane animal care. It means no synthetic hormones. It means no antibiotics. These folks now, whether they're conscious of this sea change or not, whether they're even conscious of the regs, they've got to play a game. They've got to play it. The Coke drivers have got to, they can't deliver a product that says organic and isn't. And I trust the consumer to press for the difference. Now you say, well, why are you so naive in expecting the consumer? Well, let me just tell you a quick anecdote. Recently, some of you may know, we had the organic regs approved. And actually, it was a wonderful name. A congressman in Georgia named Nathan Deal cut one with Denny Hastert. He had a poultry producer who was a constituent, and the poultry producer said, gee, I can't go organic, I can't compete with this or that little organic guy because organic grain is seasonal and it costs 50% more than conventional. He said, put through a rider in the next appropriations bill that says that if organic grain can't be purchased within a certain price premium of conventional, then I can use non-organic grain and still call it organic. And Deal put it through. Hastert said, yeah, sure, let it go through. I actually was the guy who called Leahy's office at 7 the next morning hearing about this thing. Senator Leahy and a group of, a bipartisan group of senators and congressmen on both sides pounced on this thing. We had a piece of legislation up in 30 days, passed in 45 days, that reversed this backroom deal. And we now have an organic lobby that's out there. And why was it so easy to get 70 senators and I forget how many House people? Because we had an instant email network across the country of folks like you and me, activists who just lit it up. And suddenly, folks in Utah and Idaho, people who are not necessarily from progressive states, but where vitamins and organic and natural and family farmers are a critical part of their constituencies, were saying, this is crazy, how did we let this thing happen? And Hastert instantly distanced himself from poor Deal. The point is that, I do think it was a wake-up call for the organic industry, that this will happen when the bigs get in. I think your question is well put. But I also think that we did wake up, and I think that it's going to take some vigilance. But frankly, if they don't change, we're going to be looking at decades, if not century-type turnarounds in this super tanker, and we got to turn it around faster. So I'm all in favor of it. As I mentioned, Unilever launched organic. Neither Ben or Jerry did. Now, I don't think they're doing it right. If you go to Bread and Circus and buy a pint of Ben & Jerry's organic ice cream, you'll see it's priced at $4.39. That's next to their $3.29 conventional pint, and by the way, next to my $2.99 organic pint. Brazen, aren't I? They're trying to take an equal amount of profits. They don't necessarily understand the relationship that I've been sharing with you about loyalty. They don't understand that you can bring your gross margin down and that you will get it back in other ways. They are not necessarily as entrepreneurial or as confident, or they're subject to quarterly returns, which is another challenge that the bigs have. But bottom line for me is those are minor problems in relation to what we have to happen on a planetary scale. And frankly, I need their partnership. And I'm happy to pound on Kraft, and I'm also to tell you that Kraft is doing a wonderful job with Boca Burger right now, putting viable, hormone-free meat alternatives out there. And I'm happy to celebrate the good and chastise the bad, but we need them. Yes, sir.
You've gotten to where you are pretty quickly, approximately a decade or so.
20-year overnight success.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm curious what's next. I mean, what do you see for the next, say, 10 to 20 years?
Well, how does the Stonyfield School of Management sound? Is that... I stand here humbled by the opportunity in front of me. Pogo's line, we face insurmountable opportunities. Sadly, the opportunity has been created by the kinds of stuff I showed you in the first few slides. There's some big problems out there. When you have preschoolers who've got 9 times the pesticide levels in their urine of kids who are eating organic food, what's their lives about? And when you have 72% suffering from, think about the bubble of diabetes and all that's ahead, and heart disease, and so, I'm proud to have solutions. I know I'm not going to get there by myself. I think the next 10 years is going to be spent exactly where this gentleman asked. It's going to be spent out there with a lot of strange people around me, in suits. I got one now. Seriously, we are. I find that the audiences who invite me to speak are Wall Street audiences, are leading analysts from around the world. My partnership with Groupe Danone, 7th largest food company in the world, $14.5 billion company. Guess what? They have not only come in here, and although they have now bought all of my non-employee shareholders out, I got a successful exit for them. They now actually, in fact, own a majority of the company. In fact, they yielded to me majority control. I control the majority of the board for as long as I'm there or my appointee is there. And not only do they not tell me what to do and do they stay out of the way, but I'm working on I'm working on organic initiatives under Danone in 7 or 8 countries around the world right now. 1% of Danone's worldwide purchases of sugar, vanilla, cocoa, and fruit is larger than the current world supply of those commodities. If I can convert 1%, I've done an amazing amount. I am completely pumped and excited about the next decade. I think there's, by the way, immense amount of job opportunity in this area for the students here. But I do think that we need to move steadily, and we need to move quickly, and we need to be, using the Nathan Deal example, we need to be vigilant that the standards mean something. We can't allow organic to become what natural now is. Word natural means nothing. There are ice creams that don't change shape when they melt that are called natural, So this is where you come in. I mean, my ability to stand here, my ability to do all of this is only based on your willingness to go to that cash register and buy that stuff. So the rest of you didn't have your hands up when I asked you about Stonyfield. Get on the stick. Seriously, as you consume more, as demand goes up, supply is quickly following. The sugar example is there. And as supply follows, pricing and costs come down. Our organic dairy farmers, they win 3 ways. First, they get a higher price. We pay them almost twice now the conventional rate. Second, their costs go down over time because they're improving the soil, they're improving their yields. The organic farmers who are not using synthetic growth hormone and antibiotics tell us their animals are healthier. They don't have to see the vet anymore. And you could talk to them, on my website and hear from them. Don't take my word for it. I was in the Central Valley in California this summer, listening to organic farmers who on either side have conventional farmers out there spraying. The big farm, so a little bit of a distance. But the birds and the butterflies were on this guy's farm and they weren't over here. And his animals are healthy. The vet does not visit him. And they win a third way. They get to hug their kids at night. When they had the white stuff on their clothes, the kids would come up to them at the end of the day and they couldn't hold them. They had to go take a shower if that got that off them. And they get to hug their kids at night in both senses of the word. They can literally, physically be intimate with their children and breathe the same, air and water and feel good about it. And they can feel good about the lives that their children will have ahead of them. So there is nothing but positive things to be said about this organic revolution. But again, it's all dependent on you all to keep believing and buying that way. Yes, in the back?
Which other product categories do you think are ripe for businesses to combine environmental and social benefits alongside profitability?
I'm sorry, can you say the first part of that?
Sure. Which other product categories do you think are ripe for businesses to combine profitability with social and environmental goals?
Well, of course, globally, certainly the food business is a great place to start. It's probably the place that people come closest to nature, if you think about it. I predict, though, that we're going to be eclipsed by transportation in the next 20 years. You notice Lexus is now coming out with a high-end hybrid. Ford is coming out with a high-end hybrid. It's not going to just be Toyota, Honda with this market share. Transportation is clearly the 10,000-pound gorilla when it comes to climate change. And I think the company that can go out there and say you can have comfort, sex appeal, all of those things that they say in the TV ads, and 50 miles per gallon, that's going to become elite. That's going to be a big opportunity. But certainly within food, we have indices that will show you that beverages are probably the hottest area. Why? We're in a grab-and-go culture. Most of us are, doing this constantly. We're eating this way, it's a rapidly growing segment, the so-called nutraceutical or health beverage category. Interestingly, this is not limited to non-alcoholic beverages. Organic wine is doing extremely well, and some of the biggest vintners in the world are now going to organic. And by the way, all they're doing is going back to the practices of 50 years ago. And by the way, all they're doing is checking with the old guy down there and saying, how did you do it? And it's not so hard, and it costs a lot less. And these young Turks are, saying, my God, you mean I don't have to spend this on fertilizers and people don't get sick and my health insurance is going to go down and so on. I mean, there's a lot of ups. One of the hottest segments this year, 2003, in organics is pet food. Dog and cat food is way, way up. I haven't looked into fish food, but I'm probably there too. But certainly beverages. When you ask consumers what are your entry points for organic, produce would tend to be the first, dairy would be the second, and grains would be the third. So beyond food, I don't have as much expertise, so I'll leave it there. Yes, please. Right in the middle? Oh, sorry.
Just wondering if you could tell us about your organic fast food restaurant. There seems to be a little bit of a contradiction in terms there.
No. Why does fast have to be garbage? I mean, you come to Acton and you order, you'll get in 90 seconds, if you eat meat, you'll get an organic bison burger from Nature Conservancy, free-range buffalo. If you like stir fry in 100 seconds, you can have chopped chai or a 5-spice. If you like vegetarian, you can have Salads, you can have, we have a wide range of soy offerings. It's just as fast as a McAuffle. By the way, we're changing them. By the way, when they call and say, can we come take photographs and take notes, I say, absolutely, come on in. For the very reason I answered your question. We got to change McDonald's. We got to change it quick. I expect that there's going to be a lot of locations available for me before too long, the way they're going. But meanwhile, we got to at least give them a fighting chance to convert, because I'm not going to have one every time there's 12,000 people, and they are. Our food, I'll just quickly tell you the background of this. I took my kids out to California about 7 years ago, and I figured we went for a vacation. We drove from San Francisco up to Seattle or Vancouver, and I figured, California, ecotopia, I'll be giving them health food. They can eat like they do at home. Wrong. As soon as we were out of Marin, it was just, the land of the vanilla shake again. And I was horrified. The kids, of course, loved it. They're getting food that we would never serve them at home, and, they're just like, next one, Dad, next one, and it's 5 minutes between McDonald's. It was just impossible. And I came back all bummed out about that. And then I'm a soccer coach, so I was taking the kids down to a New England Revolution game. Now, to get from Concord, New Hampshire to there, I knew how many McDonald's were in between, and I was trying to plot my route and think, how do I avoid them, which is, of course, impossible. But I got a brainstorm on 128, which was if I pulled off at the Bedford exit and went into Nature's Heartland, what is now Bread and Circus, I gave the kids each $8. I'd send them to the deli counter. I said, buy whatever you want. Well, they came out with, tofu dogs and free-range, hormone-free chicken nuggets and tacos and salads with their favorite dressing from home. And their platters were filled. These 4 little rugrats sat in the back of my car and ate not only to their heart's content, not only without a sugar rush, which I very much appreciated as the driver, but when I got to the ballpark and the cotton candy and Cracker Jacks folks came by, my kids didn't ask for any. They were stuffed. They were full. I couldn't believe it. I called my wife on the way home. I said, this is it. We've just got to turn this into a restaurant. And when we first built our very first restaurant, we offered burgers and fries because we figured that is the definition of fast food. And people, when they came in, they saw stir fries and other chicken salads, and the kids' meals I offer organic mac and cheese. I want to call it the Little Mac, but I haven't gotten permission yet. I had a tortilla dog wrapped in a organic flatbread. I had a grilled cheese with, of course, organic cheese, organic bread. I had, I'm forgetting something else that was on the menu. And they just went everywhere but the burgers and the fries. Well, that meant I didn't have to fry, I didn't have to broil. It reduced my heating bill. My number 1 selling item is an organic steak sandwich. My number 2 is chicken salad. The stir fry is number 3. The average ring is $7.25. We have lines out the door every lunch and every dinner. There's 4 restaurants. One's in Portland, one's in Falmouth, Maine, one's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one's in Acton, as I mentioned, right off about a mile from the Rotary, at Route 2A. Just go out and check it out. It's in the location with Trader Joe's. It's 18 minutes for you folks here. You can get there for dinner. And I'm opening one in Hingham, and I hope momentarily in Boston, actually quite close to where we're standing now. And all I can tell you is I started with the same naivete and ignorance. I never wanted to be in the retail business. I like selling to people who sell to people. But what can I tell you? It's working. Our first restaurant was profitable in the 9th month. Our second one was profitable in the 6th month. Our third one just opened, and it was cash flow profitable in the 1st month. Now, it was summer in a tourist area. We'll see. But people have no reason not to come back. That's double negative. People have every reason to come back. And I'm certain that we are going to be changing the way McDonald's does business, and ultimately that's in fact my goal. I hope instead of it saying billions and billions served someday, I hope it'll say millions and millions saved. So, yes?
First of all, I'd like to say I really admire your philosophy and that you've been able to make it work. But I have a question. I have 2 questions, I think. First of all, what are the demographic profiles of people who eat yogurt? And it's my understanding, I'm not familiar with your, no, it isn't me, that's the next question. I'm not familiar with your products, and so I don't know your pricing strategy. but who can afford your product? Because my understanding is that organic products tend to be higher priced than other products. And then also, do you think organic farming practices could actually be used in the third world, for example, Africa, to produce enough food for these people?
Yeah, that's the big... well, first of all, let's be clear about something. All of humanity ate organic food until the 1950s. Julius Caesar, Charlemagne, George Washington, Harry Truman, the world's leaders, everyone who got us here into this fix was eating organic food. It has fed humanity, and it can and will feed humanity. I am certain. Sorry? A lot fewer people, of course. But the reality is that I gave you the yields. The more pesticides we put in, the more pest problems we have. Double the pest losses with 7 times the pesticides being applied. That's not working. Chemical fertilizers going into the soil, that's not working. The soils are becoming nutrient depleted. We have to put it's a negative reinforcement. We have to keep putting more and more chemicals on because there's less and less native chemicals there. To answer your questions directly, our pricing strategy is to try to be as close to the competition as we can. The organic consumer typically tells us that they will pay about a 15% premium maximum. Now, there are plenty of categories where organic and the conventional are at parity. And part of what you see happening in my business is you have whole new categories springing up, like soy milk, where that is the category. Organic soy milk is the norm, and that's just what people are buying. To put this in concrete terms, we would typically sell for 85 cents what someone else might sell for 79 or 75 or 72 cents. Now, we're not a 3 for $1 yogurt because there's actually food in ours. Modified food starch and gelatin are great shortcuts, but there's no nutritive value, and they're cheap, and they're just fillers. And we have this crazy idea that what's in the cup ought to actually be food. And you can say, well, then how are you addressing problems of lower income folks with that? And the answer is, we're not yet. But the other answer is that our food system, the organic food system, the system where manure went back onto the land, where compost went back on the land, where people's food waste went back on the land, where animals and land were treated in natural systems, that has been obliterated by this dance that we've had for 50, 60 years, and we're rebuilding it. But I can tell you clinically, I can tell you absolutely, my organic farmers, because we are doing the metrics year in, year out, it's getting less and less and less expensive for them. They're getting more and more and more productive. Grape growers for Pavich, one of the largest organic grape growers in the country, are getting parity productivity on an actual pound per acre out, and their costs are lower because they're not paying for all these fossil fuels to apply. So it absolutely has a solution to the world food crisis. Certainly more than the Green Revolution does, which offers only the hopes that as long as there's nitrogen to be mined and fossil fuels to be exploited, that there'll be chemical solutions, which we all know we don't have infinite amounts of time with these resources. But more directly, our price premium has been able to come down roughly 15% per year now for the last 5 years. And so if you plot that out, you'll see me at parity very soon. And as a matter of fact, interestingly, the yogurt drink category, which is a brand new category this year in the U.S., if you go anywhere else in the world, 50% of the category is drinkable yogurt. I launched this year, Dan and Frusion launched this year, and Yoplait Nourish launched this year, and we're all priced at the same place. I'm the organic one, they're not. So right away, there's no price premium. Part of my challenge and part of your challenges as entrepreneurs who get into this is that we've got to find clever ways. I've obviously talked about the marketing. We have to find clever ways to get our costs there. So when the category this spring switched over from an 8-ounce to a 6-ounce cup, Americans, I didn't answer your first question. It's primarily women, 60-40. Men are growing fast. The under 12 market is incredible. It's like 95% eat yogurt. But we have the lowest per capita consumption of yogurt of any Western nation, and yet we eat it in the biggest cups. It's sort of what I call the Texas problem, you know. So when the category switched to a 6-ounce cup, Dannon switched to 6-ounce because Yoplait had been kicking their butts with a 6-ounce cup at an 8-ounce price for 2 decades. Dannon switched, and we just looked at the writing on the wall and said, hey, we're not going to be left behind. We can't sit there at 85 cents when they're at 69. So we knocked ourselves down to 6-ounce to keep that price parity. But over time, as our costs go down, we found that we're able to pass it back, and it's dropping pretty rapidly. I sense that my time is up, so thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Great. Okay, want to hang around for a second?
Yeah. What's that? Oh, right here? Okay. I'm sorry.
An encore?
No, it's okay.
One of the conditions in which I could get Gary to come out here and speak to us this evening was that he's got to get out of here by 6:45 because he's got to go coach a soccer game in which his son is playing. So I had to take that request quite seriously. But thank you very much for that very inspirational speech. And since you were here and I was there, and I thought I had a vantage point when you talked about your future plan, I would request that you come here and look at what it says. It says Boston University School of Management. Wouldn't this look much nicer if we said Stonyfield School of Management, which is, we're open.
Couple million away, right?
we are ready. We are ready.
Buy more yogurt.
Gary said he was a handshake kind of a person who builds loyalty with people, and this is our one small way in which we can build a relationship with Boston University School of Management, and we just wanted to give him a little bit of appreciation. In this plaque that says Boston University School of Management proudly recognizes Gary Hirshberg, President and CEO of Stonyfield Farm, keynote speaker for contributing to the conference on integrating social initiatives and marketing strategy. And so thank you for coming and doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. I'll take the box. That'll be helpful. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
So Gary said there's yogurt in the building, so there must be yogurt in the building. And so as you exit from the outside, keep looking for it and help yourself to some free samples. Thank you all.
Well, it's evening. And it's